Hello, revolutionary thinking. This is an interview in my long line of interviews with autonomy students. And today I am having an interview with Tony Rurink. And Tony is a former truck driver. And pardon us if sometimes this interview maybe would slow down a little bit or you hear jumps here and there. I'm still working on these technical issues, but I think what matters the most is all the insights that you get are from people who are older, people who have gone through the education system, and what like all the traps that we've fallen into and gotten out of, and how you're going to learn to get out of those traps, and how are you going how you know being older and learning for all those lessons is going to help you in your life. So I'm going to start by asking Tony. So Tony, once you've finished your education from K through 12, how did the path after that feel?
It felt very pre-planned. It was all laid out for me, but it didn't quite. So they told me to go down this path. They told me after you get out of high school, you go to community college. Usually, you do that to go raise your GPA to go to your university. Then you get out and you go do your thing. Where I found it was lacking is you go straight from high school to then deciding what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And I wasn't really prepared to make that decision. And I also wasn't taught a bunch of, I would say, essential life skills for surviving out in the real world. So it became this thing where I got out of K through 12, and then I juggled a lot, and I fumbled the ball quite a bit, not figuring out where I should go, what I should do. And so I ended up dropping out of community college because I found I was wasting a lot of money, constantly shifting my interest. So, I just don't feel like I was prepared for it. And I feel like I was kind of railroaded into one direction that made me go into debt.
Ah, I see. And is this did you have any influences inside of your family telling you that maybe community college or education was the right way or things like that?
Yeah, because not a lot of people in my family have went to college. So my parents wanted one of their children to at least go through that process. Um, they thought I could be like an English teacher because my English professors had always said that I had a proficiency in the skill. So that was kind of one of the options I was going for. But then I was also into graphic design and computers quite a bit. So I had all of these different things that were pulling at my attention, and I found it really hard to uh, pigeonhole myself into one of these categories. But yeah, I definitely had that outside influence. I also had that influence in school where you see all your friends going to college. A lot of the people I knew were actually leaving high school early to do their community college while they were still in school. And, you're also sat down and taught to do like the SATs and stuff like that, ACTs, in preparation for college. So yeah, I guess that's what they wanted me to do. Um, that's pretty much what they tell you in school. Like you either do this or you go work in a factory or at McDonald's or something. so I so I figured I don't want to do the factory work and I don't want to work in a restaurant. It looks like I have to go do this thing, and it turns out that that really wasn't the case for almost everything I wanted to do. Like, of course, to be an English teacher, you need the degree because that's the rules that they have in place. But when it comes to graphic design or computer networking, it wasn't necessary to do those things. It wasn't necessary to go to school, because if I was really interested in it and had a passion for it, then I would go out and learn those things, and I'd be more qualified than the people who go to school to do it just because they need a high paying job.
I see. And what state and city was this?
Yes. I went to school in both Wayland and Middleville here in Michigan, which is right by Grand Rapids. So it was a pretty natural thing for me to get out of there. I went to Kalamazoo Community College for a semester, and then I ended up switching over to Grand Rapids Community College.
Ah, I see. And then did your parents have a factory job, or was it that they were doing they had their own business, or how did that
Well,
look like?
my mom has worked in factories. She worked at Bradford White, and they manufacture like heating units, water heaters, pretty much. And she became like a supervisor there or something like that, a foreman. And my dad, he has always worked he worked for his own dad for a long time, but then he ended up taking over the family business after his dad passed away.
Right.
And so throughout high school and community college, I was working for my dad and his business. Um, he is a salesman. He sells farm equipment, and he maintains and repairs the farm equipment. And I guess it's just not something I was interested in at the time, and I'm still not really. So my plan was to go to college, get a job doing something else that I like to do, something outside of that field.
Got it. And then what were the kind of classes you were taking at the community college? General education, or in a specific course of a specific area?
It was mostly general education because I was, my first 2 years, I was going to focus on that so that I could then transfer to a university. That's what most people do nowadays. They go get the generals out of the way at the cheap college, and then they transfer over to get the specialty stuff done at the university. But I took just basically general class, general computer networking, general graphic design, general English classes. That's about it.
Got it. And then when did how did the whole truck driving thing start?
The truck driving thing came quite a few years after my community college thing. I got done with community college and dropping out probably around 2011, 2012. And then after that, I bounced around jobs, just trying to figure out what I like to do. And eventually I ended up moving up to Everett, Michigan, about 2.5 hours away from my family. Worked at a greenhouse up there for a while. Decided that I didn't want to be there anymore. And then kind of just dropped everything and took up the trucking job because I liked to travel, and I also liked to listen to podcasts. So I figured, while I'm making a bunch of money to save up to do this other thing that I want to do, which at the time was homesteading. I was trying to save up to do my own homestead. So I figured I'll go out on the road, I'll make a bunch of money driving and listen to educational podcasts while I'm doing it. And then I'll move back home, buy a piece of land and start a homestead, like maybe make some money off of gardening, selling stuff at the local farmers market, finding restaurants to sell to, that kind of thing. And my plans have changed since then. Now I'm looking more towards the internet side of things. Getting into affiliate marketing is definitely my major course of action at the moment, and building up some high value skills like copywriting.
Got it. So throughout your whole K through 12 and part of community college, they didn't really ask you what you were passionate about, what you wanted to do, or guide you in any kind of way that was efficient. It was like, it's based on dependency. It seems like everything that you do, you're always dependent on somebody to give you orders or to tell you something to do, but never like coming from inside, what you like or what you want or anything like that.
That's exactly right.
Right. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So then when did you get into autonomy the course? Was it you were a longtime Tragedy and Hope subscriber or something else?
Yeah, I've been Tragedy and Hope member since 2014. So I've known about John Taylor Gatto and his work for quite a while now. It's just it's taken me a long time to really internalize the lessons and start to put that into action in my own life. So even though I knew about all this stuff, I had a problem with discipline and willpower. So that's something that's definitely um, been kicked to the curb a bit now that I'm in the autonomy course. I've gained the confidence and I'm gaining the discipline and the willpower to move forward with what I want to do instead of just being a victim of my surroundings.
Ah, got it. So it feels like now you're kind of getting that stable footing, the kind that we were supposed to get through all those 12 years and things, but it seemed like it wasn't there. But now it just seems that you can grow some roots,
Yeah, exactly.
something
The
that
roots
you
being how to, well, one of the important things was learning how to schedule for success. Like, and that's something that I still find a little difficult because of my job having variable hours. So I'm trying to create my system around that, but also just, uh, I think creating a vision and goal and then having your actions align with that. So prioritizing has been a big part of what I'm trying to do now to help propel me forward. Because before I got into the autonomy course, it was very my effort was very scattered. So things weren't building on each other like they should be. So now I've become very much more focused on what the goals are for the future and how to achieve those goals, how to prioritize correctly during my day to make sure I'm getting the important things done and building that foundation for a successful future.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what we all need. And I know, like, when, as part of the autonomy course, sorry, when did Richard decide to make you a moderator? Did you have like skills in knowing how Discord works and how to set up communities or all of these things?
It was the former. So I got onto the Discord and I just started helping people around the program itself. And then yeah, I guess he liked that I was reaching out to people and helping them with their problems. So he decided just let me become a moderator, which all it is, being able to mute someone and stuff like that. There's not a whole bunch of responsibility that comes with it. And he hasn't really made any uh, rules or anything like that for us to follow.
Oh, okay. Well, but it just seems like at least you took the initiative to do that, and you had some knowledge about how like kind of these things in Discord, how they worked, how they came together, and it's like that's why I got you on my my philosophy server, and you're part of the world management because but but it's a good thing. It's a good skill to have to know how these systems work, and that's something you taught yourself, or did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just it's a skill I just picked up from being on computers since I was like 10 years old. I just learned how to answer my own questions by just doing web searches, manually exploring the environment. So the software, I'd open it up and click on things until I figure out how it works.
Right. I don't know this, Tony, but like, are you a gamer, or used to be a gamer, or yeah?
Uh, yes, I used to be a big gamer. I game for like maybe 2 to 3 hours a week now. I've cut it down so that I'm gaming with my nephews when I do game. So yeah, definitely I was a gamer. So that's part of what drew me to computers. But I've also been heavily into website design back when I was in high school. I used to be on the platform Zanga and MySpace, and I would develop the static HTML divider templates for them. So just custom profiles and stuff like that. I used to be really into that.
Got it.
So
And these were things you did on your own time or in high school and university classes, or maybe both?
it was a mixture of both, but I'm self-taught in all of those areas.
But it
And
was better when you were self-teaching?
yes, I actually went into my graphic design class in high school, and I blew everyone else out of the water because I knew how to follow tutorials online, how to find those tutorials. So I was already well ahead of the curve just because I could do that research.
So there's something to be said of learning on your own, being ahead of the curve, instead of always waiting for permission for some authority figure to tell you what you can and can't do through some kind of assignment.
Yes, and I never realized it, but that's probably what led into my own belief system regarding education and what it really entails. Because even when I was in 10th grade or so, I started to question why we were learning certain subjects. If Because, for example, if I was going to go into English literature, why would I need to learn these advanced forms of mathematics? So that kind of thing didn't really make sense to me. And then I also, from the very beginning, saw the segmentation in school that happens, the compartmentalization, I mean, where you learn how to take an essay and do citations, but then you go to history class and those are missing in the history books. So you start to see those things, and some people question it, and I guess most don't. But I think that I had a natural inclination to question things.
Yes, so did I. And you know what's interesting? I think the way I learned to learn is actually through a trial and error process. And that's what I like so much about video games, is that no matter how many times I lost a level, I just kept learning that, what not to do is almost just as important as what to do. Does that ring true for you as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great message to take away from it. Unfortunately, I don't think many people make the transition from the video game to real world. But that's kind of how I look at things now too. Having that gamer experience in the past is like this is like leveling up. Now it's time to level up my real world skills and kind of go through the hero's journey in reality instead of the virtual reality.
Right. And it's funny because it's like in school we're told that failing is the end. It's like you fail and you're done and you get that F and you can be suspended or expelled. So they don't let us go through that process of learning from our failures.
Yeah, they have a very strict cutoff when it comes to failure. Yeah. So
Right.
yeah, you're right. They don't give you that. They don't teach you that valuable skill that like it's okay to fail
Right.
because
Not
that's a
even the
part of the
skill,
way.
the mindset. Because when you're so afraid of doing something wrong, you have analysis paralysis. And it's like, have you ever felt that analysis paralysis has held you back?
Oh yeah, I do it sometimes even to this day where I'm not sure if I'm ready to do something because there's so much information to dig into that you could go on for years trying to research one subject and not be satisfied and enough with yourself and your own knowledge to effectively communicate what it is you're trying to communicate. But there's a point where you have to just start the process.
Right, exactly, and it's funny because there's so much theory thrown at us in the K through 12 system. Like for instance, like we're interviewing right now, and pre-interview we had a lot. We had some connection problems, and we like I'm hopefully gonna edit those. I'm gonna edit those parts. But the thing is that like just imagine if like I didn't have this interview with you, and I said, okay, you know what, Tony, let's wait another like 5 months. I'm gonna figure out what these connection problems are and why my internet is acting like this, and let's just schedule it for let's say it'll take me like 2 years to study some computer class. Like how would
Yeah, we
like
want to get shit done.
right, yeah, we wouldn't get anything done. It's ridiculous, I think, and I think it's just that people are afraid to start some kind of project they have or follow through on some kind of idea because they think if it's not 100% perfect out of the get-go, I'm going to be embarrassed and the whole world's going to look at me and I'm going to look like a fool when like then that how do you get started, and it's not like the whole world is looking at you, and make tons of mistakes and then refine it from there.
Yeah, it's like that saying, no one gives a shit about you. So just keep doing it because yeah, you're gonna fail sometimes, but people aren't gonna judge you solely based on that. What they're really gonna judge you on is based on your wins. So they're not gonna notice your failures really, but then once you succeed, they'll start to notice you.
Got it. So Tony, more about your truck driving. I mean, was it fun? Was it interesting? Like, what did you learn in truck driving that maybe school or traditional education could have never taught you? What kind of freedom did you have, or like to get
Or
into
freedom that I didn't have.
or freedom that you didn't have? Right, you could just like go
uh,
and drive and look out the truck's window, another city. I mean, how did it
yes,
feel?
yeah, that part was pretty great. I got to see a lot of the country that I hadn't seen previously, and I got to, yeah, see a lot of stuff that I would have never seen probably. Uh, and it also showed me that there's a lot of homogenization within the country of the United States. How corporations really do have a staple everywhere. Like the franchises are everywhere. It's so there's not a lot of diversity in that anymore. I saw that the small town businesses are going down because of all the corporations that are coming in and taking over those markets. I also saw how government regulation reaches into every industry, especially trucking. And it also it makes it, they have so much regulations that it makes it inefficient and unsafe, despite the reasons for the regulations being safety.
Um, well, it goes to say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, or
Yeah,
something like
exactly.
that. Right, right.
Yeah,
It's really something. So, how long were you trucking for?
I trucked a year and a half over the road, and then I'm still trucking, but it's for local dairy farms. So now I don't. Only out for
Mm, yeah.
10, 12 hours a day.
Oh, okay. So you're still a trucker. Maybe I'll change the title. I was putting former trucker. I'll just say trucker.
Yeah, I'm a trucker for hopefully another 5, 6 months, and then I'm hoping that I can have my online business going
Right.
successfully by that
But
point.
it's interesting. Like a lot of people think that like truckers are maybe hillbillies or rednecks, or like they're not technologically advanced and they can't do things like affiliate marketing or advertise
Yeah,
or
but
online design.
I think you know better than that already because
Right.
you saw people, Virgil. You saw Virgil come through HTC,
Yes.
and he was a truck driver too. And then also when I was getting into trucking, I saw a lot of people who were retired computer scientists and engineers going into trucking because they wanted a more, uh, I guess, a lifestyle where they could travel, basically.
I think like it's the elitist snobbery of the education system that kind of lets us look down on someone who's like a factory worker or a truck driver, which is ridiculous because, hey, at least they're doing something and making money. And you're keeping me here, you're filling my head with theory, and I'm not making a dime. Like, why should I be looking down on anyone in these manual jobs or these tasks? You ever felt
Well,
like that? Yeah.
yeah, I that was like the rhetoric when I was going through high school too. Everyone always was like, "Oh, you like they work at a factory," like it was a bad thing. Or like truck drivers, like you said, they have that stereotype of being a hillbilly, and that's still like the case. And maybe it is like to get people to want to go to college and go into debt, get that student loan.
Right, but like there's a trucker making you mind disclosing how much like about you're making?
Yeah. Okay. So I got paid about 36 cents a mile starting out, which is pretty typical for the person starting out. And then at the end, I was making 52 cents a mile, which is about the standard rate that most guys who are working for a company. So I didn't own my own truck. I was using a company truck. I didn't lease it or anything like that because their lease programs are usually a big scam.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, at the end, I was making a decent amount of money. So you figure you can get, oh man, I don't even remember the numbers anymore. But essentially, like $900 paychecks. It
Like
was
like a week, month, day,
weekly.
weekly. So yeah, that's not bad. That's better than being a barista.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Or working at McDonald's.
Or working at McDonald's, exactly. Like that's the thing. I mean, I remember I was always told when I was in high school that yeah, if I don't get good grades and if I don't stick to the program, I'm going to be working at McDonald's. And guess what? I graduated community college with a degree in broadcasting, which I think is kind of like what I'm doing now with these interviews. Like I'm broadcasting my YouTube page, my message to the world on my Discord server, but like like I got an A in broadcasting, and I got ended up with a McDonald's job. And I was like, okay, well, here they were telling me if I jumped through all their hoops, I wouldn't end up in a minimum wage job, and that's exactly what happened to me. So I'm like, wow, these people are liars. Like, I mean, there was no other way to put it. I mean, they said, but there's no the lack of practical skills or practical application in schooling is appalling. Like, there is no practicality in it at all. It's all just like just imagine if you wanted to learn. It's funny. Isaac actually said this with an interview with Brett, so this is where I get it from. So just imagine if you wanted to learn how to ride a bike. And they said, okay, sit here. We'll give you all these books on biking. We'll give you all these things about what all these parts of the bike are, how these parts of the bike work, the history of where bikes came from, how bikes are being manufactured. But at the end of the day, they never let you ride that bike. It's just 12 years of reading about them.
Yeah, the practice is missing.
Right.
Yeah, just like it's like in science class, you learn mostly just grammar and logical connections that other people have made. But and there was for my experience, there was a couple times where we did experiments, but it was very minimal, and it wasn't the basis of the class as you think it would be, because
right.
that's the essence of science.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, all the fun, all the juicy, interesting parts are when you actually get to do something. Not when you're sitting at a desk and writing papers and reading books, no matter how interesting the book is. It's like, how good do I feel when like I remember I volunteered at the California Science Center, and I was showing these kids some of these experiments. We had like slime bar and electromagnetism and all this stuff, and it was like things were happening. But when you're sitting there in the classroom just being lectured, nothing is happening. You're just passively taking in all this information and repeating it.
Yeah, no, that's what's missing in the schools is that active literacy. So the speech and, you know, writing persuasive arguments. I mean, you do a little bit here and there, but really that those arts are kind of left out of the
Right.
school.
And we're stratified. Every we get deeper and deeper into like the colleges, like we go and there are different departments, and in schools everything is pieced. It's not all put together. Humanity and science and English and literature, they all connect. They all intersect. But in school, they're all separated from each other. And I just find that for the perfect metaphor, because the schools are separated from the rest of the community. I mean, the rest of the community, like you have stores, you have shops, you have like institutions, but we never like go and see what's behind the scenes of all these places. And they say like, okay, like today for class, we're gonna go to a shop and see what the store owner is doing. How does the shop work? Well, how are they collecting money? What's with the cash registers? How are the employees getting their paychecks? How does the owner run his business? There's none of that.
Have you ever read The Underground History of American Education?
Right. Yeah, I have. So,
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
that's what it talks about. John talks about how the the kids are put into these rooms separated from the community uh, with a bunch of people their own age, and whereas the old experience would be they could walk around town and interact with all these different adults doing, their work, and then they can
yeah,
see how the world really operates. But yeah, you don't get that with the
right.
compulsory schooling system. And nowadays, there's a lot of fear about having your child go out into the real world.
Right, exactly. But it's going to happen eventually, and it's just
They need to learn.
it's just crippling not to have that experience. It's very isolating. It's
Mhm.
very it's disappointing like that more people. But like when you were trucking, did it feel like you finally having this experience with the world instead of just reading a book or filling out a test sheet?
uh, well, I feel like I had already had experience out in the world. I didn't really need trucking for that.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
because really, when you travel the country, you just see the amount of damage that's been done through the schooling system throughout the country. So, I mean,
Uh,
the real lessons that I've learned have been through the autonomy course.
got it.
So that would be, I would say, just learning how to communicate with other people to figure out what the problems are and how to come up with solutions to the problems.
Right.
I would say that those are the most fundamental skills that one could have.
Got it.
And
That's
then
awesome.
also, yeah. So I would tack on to that introspection. So learning how to reflect on your experiences so that you can figure out how to make your experience better. Because I think that's what people who are into self improvement do. Uh, but I feel like that's something that everyone needs to do,
Hmm.
not just people who are looking to better their lives. Because I see a lot of stigma against that right now, just from people in my own life. They don't care about intellectual self improvement uh, or just having a better life in general. They think that they can achieve the better life without the self improvement and the the benefits that come with it.
So does it feel like those people are in this loop where the same things in their life are just going on again and again with no
Yes,
deviation?
it's well, what it is. It's learned behavior from their own parents, and then they accept that as normal. That's the reality of things. Since I was taught this, then I need to do this with my own children.
Yeah.
And it's just a repeating cycle where, oh, my children have to go to public school because they won't be socialized, or
Oh, it's ironic, isn't it? I can't teach my kids because I'm not competent enough to teach my kids. I'm incompetent.
Oh, yes.
But if the schools made you incompetent, then how do you expect your kids going to the same exact schools to be made competent?
Yeah, but first they would have to understand that they're incompetent, and a lot of them don't see that. So
Right.
that's where that self-reflection comes in, and also trying to imagine what you could be. Like, how could you improve yourself? So
Yeah.
they have to have those two images, because how can you compare something and find where you're lacking if you don't have that other image of
Yeah.
your of what you could be? So if you don't have a grasp on your true potential, then you're not going to know where you're lacking.
Yeah, and I actually think that it's interesting because I said like in this huge world that we live in that's becoming so technologically advanced and it's so vast and there's such a diversity of people and ideas and things to do. Why do I have to repeat the same things and be locked up somewhere? You know?
because you can't be trusted.
Right.
No, well, it's because you're not as easily managed. They can't manage the economy, uh, or just regulate people's lives if they don't create a threat. So essentially, they have to dumb people down, because that way they can fill the jobs, but then they can also make people who are crazed inside, and then that will further cement the need for a all-encompassing security police kind of system, like a panopticon. If you don't produce a bunch of violent, crazed people, then there's no need to have all that spending for your military and police budgets.
Right. And let me ask Tony, like, the finances are a big part of, being older and doing things in life. Was there any education on money or credit cards or credit scores or any of those things throughout all of your years of schooling?
Yeah, we had a optional week-long course in my senior year where we all went into this room with a bunch of computers, and we looked up how to like find an apartment. And that's
And just a week. So there was a week for that, but a year for shit, but like 4 years for Shakespeare.
yeah,
Something
exactly.
like that.
So so even though I'm saying that we had a week to like dive into the stuff just a little bit, in you I think framed it in the correct way. So you spend 4 years doing all this other shit, but you only spend a week on the important stuff. Like
Yeah.
how
Right.
to actually survive in the real world. Yeah, it's kind of
Right.
it's not a
It's
correct ratio.
it's very embarrassing. Yeah, that for whoever's put in charge of all of these systems. And okay, so since you're in my philosophy server, what's the best thing you like about philosophy? Big
Clarity.
question, I know.
Yeah, no, that's a good
Clarity.
question. But clarity, and understanding how to take the right actions. Like, what is a right
Right.
action, and how can I take that?
Right.
So, and how can I be effective in life?
Right.
Uh, Philosophy is the grounding for your actions, because it's the metaphor I like. It's like the springboard for your actions. Everyone has a philosophy, and they act based on their philosophy. So consciously thinking about your philosophy and building it up consciously, that gives you the ability to know where you're coming from. And that also gives you leverage for integrity. If you know where you're coming from, you know how to best align your actions with your principles and values. And so, yeah, it makes you more effective, more integral, so therefore more trustworthy.
Right. And I think it's a big deal because I don't think that that when we're made so busy through all of these systems, whether it's, school or work, and you're being stressed out and you're running around, like, do people actually take the time to step back and ask and go within themselves to say, like, what's making me happy? What's making me sad? What's stressing me out? And how do I identify these things? How do I understand these things? And what can I do about these things? Like, that's never people. I hardly hear that being talked about. What about you?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people uh, put themselves to the test. They don't ask those questions. I know that with the people I know, they're perfectly content to just live in the moment, and that's about it. They think of
Right.
the base necessities for survival, and it doesn't go too far beyond that.
Yeah, yeah, there's not that many moments of self-reflection. Like, but they say, like, how have you ever came across this? They go like, I'm busy. I have to run here, I have to run there, and I have to do this and I have to do that. But if you ever ask them, like, what's the end game with all of this busyness you have? Like, what's the end goal? Where's all this busyness gonna lead you? Like, they would shrug their shoulders.
It's to pay my bills, and then that's it.
Right, it's to pay your bills, but what are you paying your bills for if
Yeah.
you don't know what you're living your life for?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty much that's what led me to skipping around with my jobs, because I kept feeling like I didn't have a lot of meaning in my work. Um, yeah, it just all felt kind of pointless to me. Like, I'm working so I can pay for my car to get to work, so I can maybe be
So
home for a couple minutes.
it's that
Yeah,
loop. It's that
it
it's it
is.
it is that loop. And I think the more people who can really derive joy and happiness and fulfillment from what they do, the less I think the less things that suck we'll have in this world. Uh,
Yeah, what would you say to someone who said that those jobs always need to be there, and it's okay for
well,
people to just do that kind of thing?
Well, I'd say if they're starting out, then okay, let's get the ball rolling. So maybe if they just need a little extra money and stuff like that, but to be entrapped in I call it sometimes being a mindless cog in a heartless machine. That's not the kind of existence that I want to live, or at least if it seems menial or boring at the time being, if there's room for growth. But if there's no room for growth and no room for meaning, then then hey, have a robot take it and do a better job in the schools, which they're never going to do, to make sure that something like that doesn't happen to people, so they don't end up losing their minds and having an existential crisis at the age of 50 years old.
Yeah, I see that quite a bit, and it is from people who worked in factories too. That's the thing, because yeah, I think that they just fall into that after they get done with high school, or maybe they don't even finish high school. They have to go to work to support their family. Then they get
Right.
wrapped up in that system, and then they're not taught the skills to move beyond that. Uh, and they don't have people around them that are leading by example, showing how to do that process.
Right.
So that's what needs to happen, is we need to
Right.
have people who are aware of what it takes to outgrow the status quo, so to speak. So that would entail learning how to learn for yourself, uh, doing exercises to figure out what the future could look like, or what you want your future to look like. Probably reading some books to figure out what possibilities
Right.
exist.
And like trying things out,
Yeah,
whether
exactly.
you succeed or fail in them. And and like, just 3 times we've had an unstable connection thing, but it's still recording and we're still going strong. And even if I do lose all this information, you're still here, I'm still here, we can renegotiate, we can come back. and it's like it's not that you're gonna do one thing and then if it messes up, your life is over. You know?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to stop the interview because too many connection errors. No.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. It goes on, and if it happens, you reschedule, you renegotiate, you figure out what's going wrong, and I think it's sometimes just intellectual laziness that people don't want to figure these things out, and they just want to stick to the status quo.
Yeah, I got something here. I don't know if you can read it, but
Reflect. Oh, plan, act, reflect.
yeah, exactly. That's the process you just described. So first, the reflection part, that could also be taken as observation. So before you go do something, you make observations of the world around you, and then using that data, you make your plan, and then you act on your plan, and then if something went wrong or it didn't go, quite, it didn't reach the level that you wanted it to when it comes to quality, then you just observe what you did wrong and then you revise the plan, renegotiate the plan, like you said, and then you act again. You go through this process to constantly refine your plan of action until you get it right. And that's what people need to learn. There's a process to it. And the reason I wrote this card is because this is also the something you can use on your own learning process. So when you're learning how to learn a new skill, you constantly reflect on your experiences trying to learn that skill, and you figure out, okay, I can make an adjustment here. I can cut out this distraction here. I can embroil myself in this community over here who is also geared towards learning that skill. And those things will all, eventually you do go through this process so much and until you finally become a master at learning itself.
Right. And you're going to have your ups and downs, but the thing is that you can even make it fun.
Yeah, gamify it if you want.
Right. Yeah, you can gamify. I think that we're put under this illusion that the learning process is a struggle. It's tedious, it's boring, it's mundane, and when we're educated like that, when we're told that it has to be mundane and tedious and not fun and exciting, we get under that false illusion from time to time.
Yeah, and I think also one of the key components to the autonomy class is that it's a fear-free environment. And I think that fits right into what you're saying is most people associate learning with pain and humiliation.
Right.
So you take that away, you make it a fun environment where people make friends, and they're not afraid to fail. You
Right.
set them up for success.
I mean, for God's sake, it's learning, not BDSM. You know what I mean? It's like we're
Well,
giving
we could do learning about BDSM,
right, but
BDSM
it doesn't have
class, autonomy.
yeah, but it doesn't have to be torture. And I think that's a perfect note to leave. Learn and don't torture yourself. have
Yes.
have a good time. Well, anyway, Tony, it's really been a pleasure talking with you, and I'm gonna edit this, make it cool, and if it all didn't get recorded or things, we can always schedule another time. And it's always been great.
Okay. All right. Thanks for having me on, Ariel.
Perfect. I'll see you back in class.
All right. See you,
All
man.
right. Bye.